We are the battling bastards of Bataan.
No mama, no papa, no Uncle Sam.
No aunts, no uncles, no cousins, no nieces.
No pills, no planes, no artillery pieces.
And nobody gives a damn.
I was on the Bataan Peninsula, and the orders come down to assemble on Marvelis airstrip.
And my first question was, where's Marvelis? And they said, just follow the crowd.
It was about 40 kilometers, and we marched it in 8 hours.
We got food one time on the march. It was 65 miles.
At the time, I had 104 fever, and I had some shoes that didn't fit me, so I really didn't enjoy that.
I lay down and I was not going any further. That was the end of the march for me.
You cannot imagine the result of the traumatic experience that I and the fellows I was with went through.
General officers, warrant officers, command sergeant majors, friends and family, it's my pleasure to be here this afternoon representing the Minnesota National Guard and honoring the 194 Bataan Death March survivors. Today, we recognize the service and contributions that was set in place almost 69 years ago on the far side of the world when these men were suddenly and brutally cut off from their families and nation. At the beginning of World War II, the 194 Tank Battalion was composed mostly of National Guard members. Others were drafted into the unit at a much later time. The 194 was only a modest and inadequately equipped unit that was part of a garrison of American troops and support staff that were stationed in the Philippines to cut off a Japanese surprise attack. Gentlemen, you and your comrades held the line as long as you could. You did so brilliantly, but at a terrible cost. These men fought on Bataan and Corregidor, resisting the enemy to the utmost of their abilities. Through their courage, love of country, and deep personal faith, they endured deprivation and brutality at the hands of a ruthless enemy. They showed the world what Americans were made of. We want you to know that the members of the 194 Armor here today, the Minnesota Army National Guard, the governor, and the people in this room consider you to be great heroes. I don't think there is a story about bravery and courage that moves us more than the personal stories of your sacrifices and your commitment to each other's survival. You were without food or water, dealt extreme cruelty and atrocities by the hands of the Japanese, and marched more than 60 miles to unknown terrors. To this end, nearly 10,000 American and Filipino troops died in the march. After the march, many survivors were moved to labor camps in Japan by what was called hell ships. Many of these unmarked POW hell ships en route to Japan were sunk unknowingly by the Navy, our Navy. Some of the hell ship survivors went to Japan to become slave laborers in freezing coal mines. Others had to work untold hours in zinc mines, loading docks. Some were forced to manufacture war supplies for this cruel enemy. Like you, hundreds of thousands of other Americans from this greatest generation, you paid a tremendous price for the freedoms we all enjoy today. As General MacArthur said, forgive me, Fred, for bringing up General MacArthur. As he said, the Bataan garrison was destroyed due to its dreadful handicaps, but no army in history more thoroughly accomplished its mission. You stopped the Japanese in their tracks, and you gave our nation precious time to recruit, train, and equip the men and women who would eventually win the war. You rallied the nation, made fearful by Pearl Harbor. You reminded our citizens that Americans were the equal, even superior to any other fighting force on this earth. You paid a fearful price for your courage and determination. The Death March had but one design: to break the will and lives of those who embraced the freedom, who were willing to stand up to your oppressors. Your oppressors ultimately failed. Of the original 64 National Guardsmen who left to the Philippines, only 32 returned to Minnesota. For their outstanding performance of duty in action, the 194 Tank Battalion was awarded 3 Presidential Unit Citations. Today, these men will be receiving 3 awards: a commemorative coin from their own unit, an original proclamation from the Governor of the state of Minnesota, and the highest award the Minnesota National Guard can award a person, the Minnesota Distinguished Service Medal. Today, the proclamation will be awarded by Major General Larry Shelto. General Shelto has been a member of the United States Army and the Minnesota Army National Guard for 41 years and currently serves as the Adjutant General for the Minnesota National Guard. He was appointed to the state's top military position by Governor Tim Pawlenty in November 2003 and commands more than 14,000 members of the Minnesota Army and Air National Guard. The Adjutant General.
It's often quoted, those who fail to study history are destined to repeat it. And today, you're experiencing 2 parts. The first part was honoring our legacy, our mentors, our trainers, our forefathers, our brothers, who helped shape and create what I can rightfully say, and General Nashville can say it also, the strongest Minnesota National Guard since I can ever remember. We've been there, we've done that, and they've come back with accolades. But what you saw on the screen clearly shows that some people were, again using a cliche, seemingly at the wrong place at the wrong time. But their strength, their courage, and their abilities to survive is a model for us all. And to this day, the Bataan Death March is honored not only by the battalion, but also in, I believe, Texas. It is that significant and that much of an impact. So today we recognize the heroes of the 194th Tank Battalion and the survivors of Bataan. And I will now read an excerpt of the proclamation signed by the Governor. Now therefore, I, Tim Pawlenty, Governor of Minnesota, do hereby proclaim Sunday, October 3rd, 2010, to be 194th Tank Battalion and Bataan Survivors Day in the state of Minnesota as a time to reflect upon the sacrifices of the men who suffered and gave their all to our nation. Let's give them a hand.